Hi, welcome back to Worm Watts, where we harness the God-given power of compost worms to transform organic waste into amazing living fertilizer. Today we are continuing with our Bokashi series. So it's a series regarding fermentation of food waste, and specifically our series is focusing on how to make your own Bokashi Bran. Now, this series follows many of the steps that you would find in a fantastic how-to that was done by Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and I will try to pin a link to their fantastic video for how to do this. And I'm just basically following similar steps with a few notable exceptions, including what we're going to use as our substrate. So in our last video, in our last segment, we completed the step of isolating the whey. So we've got the whey here, we collected it here. We were able to put our curds in a cloth and just kind of let the whey drain out of it. So that's what we've got here. And then right here, I've got some molasses that we're going to use to feed the Lactobacillus in here. And right here, I've got 12 cups. Please disregard this measurement thing here. I find it not to be accurate, but I've got 12 cups of slightly warm water. And again, it's slightly warm. It's fine to the touch. It's just kind of lukewarm, but it makes the dissolving of the molasses a lot easier. So I recommend that if you have water that's a touch colder, that you go ahead and just put it on the stove for a little bit until it just warms up a touch. So let me get you set up here so that you can watch the steps. We're going to be adding in the molasses to the water. And then at that point, after we finish adding the molasses, I will then add an equal amount of our Lactobacillus serum, the whey here, into this water. And then when we complete that, adding in the molasses and then adding in an equal amount of our whey, we'll stir that around, and that solution will be about ready for us to add to our dry substrate. So without further ado, let me show you what we're doing. All right, so the formula that I recall that I'm referencing calls for 4 tablespoons of molasses. So we're going to add that in here. We have 12 cups of warm, non-chlorinated water. That's very important that it be non-chlorinated, because that's going to help with the microbial activity. We want the Lactobacillus to be able to flourish in here, and the presence of chlorine inhibits that. So we're going to go ahead and measure off. This is a 1 tablespoon measure, so we're going to do this 4 times to get in the 4 tablespoons of molasses. So that is 1 tablespoon. Ooh, it's a little bit overdone. There goes 1. That's 2. That's 3. And that is 4. We're just going to mix that around. I've still got some interested flies from the collection step of the whey, so I don't want them getting in here. All right, so that's what it looks like. You can see that the molasses rather is kind of still settled at the bottom. It hasn't really stirred in well. So while I hold this with one hand, I'm going to use the other hand and mix that in thoroughly. So you want that molasses to really dissolve. And again, that's why it helps to have the water somewhat warm. So I think that stirring really helped. Hopefully as it settles out, we won't see any more of the molasses just sitting there at the bottom. And it looks like we did it. So the molasses is stirred into the water now. And at this point, we're going to use this same 1 tablespoon measure, and we will measure off 4 tablespoons of our whey. All right. That's 1. 2. 3. And 4. All right, so we've got the whey transferred over as well. It's pretty quick, pretty quick and easy. And we're gonna stir that in as well. So this solution now contains the whey, which again contains the lactobacillus, and adding in the molasses has provided the lactobacillus with a food source. So with that, this solution here really just provides life and food, obviously, but gives vigor to our lactobacillus. So at this point, we're going to then add this to our substrate. So let me go ahead and pull the substrate over, and you'll get to see what we're using. And here we are. Ta-da! Our substrate. Wood chips. Not wood chips, rather sawdust. And so I'm a little bit afraid that this might be too much sawdust, because sawdust is so absorbent. But we will see. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to just go ahead and pour this into the sawdust and then try to incorporate it with my hands. Make sure that it's well saturated. And we'll go from there. So, very excited about this. So let's go ahead and get situated for that. Here it goes. All right, so we've poured the solution in there. You can see that it's left a nice moist spot here. And as I was concerned about, I do think that this might be a little bit too much of the wood chips, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue to incorporate it in there anyway. Just mixing those moist sections in with the sections that are dry. This is 50 cups of wood chips. And I didn't really have a good way of trying to determine how much 10 pounds, like the 10 pound equivalent, the equivalent of the 10 pounds of bran would be. So I went with 50 cups, which I think was a little bit of overkill. I think I could have gone with maybe 40, but as I move this around, I do think that it'll be okay. So as I'm mixing this around, I'm trying to make sure that all of the wood chips are getting nice and saturated. And I do think it's going to work out okay, actually. As I get toward the bottom, I'm seeing that it's actually doing quite fine. So these wood chips are absorbing this quite well. And there's enough to go around to all 50 cups of wood chips. So, or I keep saying wood chips, of sawdust. So, pardon me for the misspeaking. Down toward the bottom, it's nice and really, really saturated. And as I just continue to incorporate it, it's working out really well. So, this has been a success so far. And I do believe that the addition of the molasses is what really allows for this to stabilize, because that's the beautiful thing about Bokashi Bran, or in this case Bokashi dust, is that it's something that can be stable for such a long period of time. And just serves as a great inoculant when you're doing bokashi. So I think we've got it all nice and in there, nice and saturated. I don't feel any dry spots. So this has been a great success. If you're doing wood chip or sawdust like I am, 50 cups to, this is 50 cups of sawdust, 12 cups of non-chlorinated water that I warmed, and then 4 tablespoons of molasses and 4 tablespoons of the whey. But it feels really good. I think it's ready. So at this point, what I'm going to do, we need to ferment, we need to allow this to ferment. And the way for us to do that is going to be to gather all of this up, to put it in a garbage bag, a sealed garbage bag. It'd be preferable to use one that's black, but I don't have one available to me. But I can still put it in a dark place. And then we're going to seal it off, tie it off, and leave it for 2 weeks to ferment, just like we left the milk with the rice wash water. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that started. I've got my bag here, just a little trash bag. And just gonna shovel this into there and then tie it off. All right, there we go. So we've got the bag all full. I'll take this out of the way. That's our bag. I'm gonna go ahead and tie it off. And try to squeeze as much air out as we can. I want this to be nice and anaerobic. I'll tie that off. There we go. All right, and there it is. So I will actually probably put it in like a sealed tote or something of that nature to reduce the oxygen exposure even more. And then, yeah, we'll leave it in a nice dark place for 2 weeks. And we'll come back and check it out then. By then, what I will expect is that when I open the bag, you'll expect to smell a slightly sweet fermented smell, pickled smell to these wood chips, and that'll kind of signify that, or that'll be the clue that the wood chips have been fully inoculated with the Lactobacillus. And at that point, we'll then begin the step of drying this out so that it can be ready for long-term storage. So really exciting. This has been quite a journey. The first time I made this, I did make it using bran, and that worked out well. It was very effective at fermenting the food scraps in my bokashi bins. But unfortunately, the bran ended up falling victim to grain mites. And so since then, I've been trying to find a way to do this that's a little bit more pest resistant. And so I'm really excited about this and hopeful that this will be a great solution. So thanks for joining me in this, and we'll be back to check on this in 2 weeks.